Okay, so for more on Colorado's court ruling, we're joined now by Joseph Moreno. He's a former federal prosecutor. We reached him in Alexandria, Virginia. Good to speak with you.
Hey, Sarah, good to be with you.
So let's just start with this ruling that came out really late yesterday. What do you make of the fact that the Colorado court is saying that Trump is ineligible to appear on the state's 2024 ballots?
Well, Sarah, like many things in our Constitution, there's language in there that seems obvious in how to interpret, but there's not a lot of detail. So what the 14th Amendment disqualification language says is that someone who has engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the United States cannot hold high office. So, but what does exactly it mean to engage in insurrection or rebellion? Well, it doesn't say. Now, there's a crime called insurrection that Congress has passed, but Donald Trump has not been charged with that. So basically what the Colorado Supreme Court has done is it says, we're going to define what insurrection is, and we're going to decide that Donald Trump engaged in it. It's gutsy. I mean, they've gone out on a limb there, and they've now basically made a new standard. Now, the big question is, will it hold up under scrutiny? How will an appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court view this unprecedented decision?
Gutsy, a new standard. I mean, you're right. He has not been convicted or even charged of insurrection. So, I mean, when you talk about the scrutiny, do you think this ruling is justified?
Justified is hard to say. Do I think it will withstand appeal? No, it will be struck down. I think the only question is whether it will be a majority in the Supreme Court or a unanimous Supreme Court. And look, I understand that people feel very strongly that Donald Trump has done things that are illegal, that have done things that should disqualify him from office. But feeling is one thing. As a lawyer, I'm going to say, look, we have to apply legal standards. And the fact is that if he is charged and he is convicted with insurrection, then by all means, he should be disqualified. In the absence of that, I think it's really hard to defend a court just going out there without a trial, without any kind of due process, and just declaring that Donald Trump has engaged in insurrection. So again, I see where the sentiment is from. I see the court wanting to protect the political process, but I don't think this is the way to go about doing it. I don't think the Supreme Court will look on it very kindly.
Joseph, let me ask you, we have heard a number of Republicans talk about the fact that they do not believe that a court should play a role here, that the judges should not be the ones taking away or making a decision like this that would then take away a voter's right to decide. Do you think that the court really should be playing a role here like this?
I think there could be instances where it would be appropriate for a court to play a role. And so, again, if Donald Trump were charged with insurrection, and there is a crime called insurrection, he has not been charged with it. If he were convicted in a criminal case, then I think a state civil court would have every right to bar him from the ballot. I think that would be the way to do this. The missing part is that middle piece, right? That criminal trial and conviction. In the absence of that, the court has basically just made it up. And that's not how our system works. So Donald Trump, he's going to get some political traction from this because he's going to point to it and say, look, this is really undemocratic. It's really unfair. And once again, people are going to have to decide whether or not they want the courts to get so involved in the political process or if they want to let the voters decide what's going on here.
There's a lot of talk about how this could play actually in Donald Trump's favor, just by the sheer volume of headlines that it's, of course, making. But to your point, he could actually be pointing to the court saying that this is a step beyond where they should be. Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, there's a whole universe of legal cases now against Donald Trump, right? We've got 4 criminal cases. We've got a major civil case trying to shut down his business. And we have about 25 of these ballot disqualification cases throughout the country. Some of these are strong. Many of them are not. And I do think that Donald Trump's opponents have to be really careful because if it looks like they're piling on, if it looks like they're taking good cases and then lumping them together with weaker cases, he will get political traction from this. So if I were advising the Department of Justice, I would say, look, bring action against Donald Trump if it's justified, but make sure it's strong. Because if you're bringing wobbly cases, he's only going to get more popular because his backers will just get riled up, that feeling like he's being treated unfairly.
I was going to ask you, because after Colorado's decision came out yesterday, immediately there was talk about other states, given this ruling in Colorado, other like-minded individuals in other states pursuing similar cases there. Do you see that happening?
Well, there's about 24 of them currently pending. Now, there have been 7 decided before Colorado, and all of them went in Donald Trump's favor. So Colorado was the 8th one that came to a decision, and obviously they came out against Donald Trump. It will be interesting to see who follows suit, and that probably makes it all the more vital that the U.S. Supreme Court step in and lay out some parameters here as to, okay, what exactly is insurrection? What does it take to mean that someone engaged in insurrection? And then what does it take to activate the disqualification language in the 14th Amendment? I think with those rules in place, that will allow the 50 states to then make reasoned, consistent decisions, because we don't want to have 50 states using 50 different standards and coming to 50 different verdicts. That's a mess waiting to happen. So hopefully the Supreme Court will intervene quickly and stop that from happening.
Yeah, I need to ask you quickly. I need to ask you about that timing, because you use the word quickly here. Things are happening very fast right now in the United States in terms of the next election season in 2024. How fast could this all play out, and how fast does it need to play out, do you think?
Well, this Colorado decision has to happen pretty quickly, because my understanding is January 4th is when the ballots start getting finalized. And so the Colorado Supreme Court has now forced the U.S. Supreme Court to work very feverishly to take on this case. So I predict a lot of Supreme Court clerks will be working through the Christmas holidays and might not appreciate that, but it'll be busy in the Supreme Court building these next few weeks.
It'd be interesting to hear behind closed-door conversations about that. Joseph Moreno is a former federal prosecutor in the United States. Appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Happy holidays.